Hello and happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Weird time today. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you. Whew, I forgot that by this time of the day, I'm tired. But you know what? I know I'm going to get all livened up getting together now and looking at this great series of books that we started looking at on, I think last Wednesday, wasn't it? The Fireside Industries. This is going to be our content today. 1926, sort of a correspondence rug making, rug hooking class with some similarities to what we do now and some huge differences, but all charm. Mom, good to see you. After a delay from, yeah, so classic Deanna. I'm driving to work and I get to, Connecticut is always like, it's like the armpit of the world for traffic jams. I get to the big tunnel and they're doing construction. So everything goes down to one lane, right? I'm not going to start. And nobody understands what the zipper is. Two lanes, one car, one car, one car. Nobody understands that. There's like so many near misses with traffic jams. And finally, I'm like, whoa, am I going to make it for coffee time in time? And I get through the traffic jam, and then I thought suddenly flashed to the memory of my computer sitting in the kitchen. And I thought, well, now I'm not going to make it, am I? I am so sorry about that. It is great to see you, and I'm happy to see people tuning in the afternoon. I am so sorry about that. I never do these stupid things on purpose, but they happen all on their own, which is keeping it lively, right? Andrea, great to see you. Good evening. No, I'm not too, weirdly, I'm not too frazzled. I'm just in this great mindset lately, working on this design book and everything, getting things done. I'm suddenly in a great mindset. Maybe it's the weather kind of lifting and the days getting a little bit longer. But that would typically be the kind of thing that would send me off my rocker in a spectacular way. Like I would act normal about it, write a normal post, and then I would go and do a plank for like the next 30 minutes. But I handled it really well today. I'm almost like a different person these days with rage management. Robin, great to see you. Good afternoon in Wisconsin. Well, it's a weird time. I'm not surprised, Robin. I'm working on your Van Gogh, by the way. I have not forgotten that thing that we talked about, that the image I'm super excited about. Candace, I have a great image coming for you too. Happy afternoon. Thank you for logging on. Linda H. in Massachusetts. Great to see you. Dave, you really got me going this morning with our talk about the design. It's super exciting. Dave and I were going back and forth quite a bit. And Dave came up with the best ideas I've ever heard. And I got really excited about the design we're working on. So that is all in my bag right now and going to ship to you. Kirsten, great to see you. You wouldn't have made it this morning, but you're here in the afternoon. So that is perfect. Bonnie, hello in Florida. Great to see you. Ryan, you were able to log on too. Hello. It's been a minute. I hope everyone's doing it's been just a minute. I can't wait to see the stuff that you send too. It's really good to see you. So glad. It's just forgetting the computer, not illness. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, no. I thought I wrote that in the post. No, I just forgot my computer in the kitchen. Just that. Teddy is still ill, so he's better today, I think. He's had some kind of a stomach bug, I think. I'm sure he's going to make a guest appearance over my shoulder as soon as he comes out of the bathroom. But it's been an ongoing thing. And, I think I'm not going to get into disgusting talk, although it's very comical. He's not miserable at all. So I think it's a stomach bug because my memory of food poisoning, the couple of times in my life that I've had it, is I am ready at any moment to press the I'm ready to die now button and just have it be over, like true misery. But with what he's having, he doesn't seem miserable. He's just like, I need to use the bathroom now. Boo. And it's like no misery, no feeling sorry for himself. So I'm thinking it's probably not food poisoning. I think it's the stomach flu. And the doctor said there's a lot of that going around the schools right now. She also said you can send him back to school with the stomach flu. And I thought, yeah, no, I'm not doing that, because if he has the kind of accident that I'm imagining, like he's been having at home every few hours, he will be remembered for that at school. He's 11, right? I'm not sending him to school to set him up for a horrific experience that he's going to be telling a counselor, 20 years from now. No thanks. Ah, Lynn, great to see you from freezing Tucson. Really? Oh, I'm surprised because it's really mild. Sorry. It's winter. It's winter still, but I'm sorry that you're getting cold weather. I really am. I won't brag about the warm snap that we're getting. April, great to see you. Carrie, great to see you in Central Florida. It almost feels like spring in North Texas. Ah, here too. Sharon, lovely sunny day in Vancouver. Great to see you, Cats Gallery. Cold Southern California. No more Georgia. Oh, okay. It's funny. The places that I would think would be really warm are the places that are coming up cold right now. What an upside down, topsy turvy world we're living in, right? Gosh, this is just crazy. It's like a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. Everything is all topsy turvy. Tell Teddy not to eat bugs. I know it, right? He'll think that's really funny, actually. I hope he remembers to come in. Sonia, great to see you in St. Francisville, Louisiana. I'm glad to see you. Well, I'm happy to be back, and I wanted to continue talking about this cute series of vintage periodicals I found on eBay. I think we had fun with them last Wednesday. It's so interesting and I think informative to talk about the way that things used to be done versus the way that they are currently done. And I think it puts up lots of sort of, it gives us lots of openings to think about and talk about. Well, we have changed our manner of working in A, B, and C ways, but having done so, is there a reason? Is there a reason for it? Can we go back to some of these more sort of folky, sort of thrifty, grassrootsy aspects of the craft? Do we need to be where we are with rug cooking having sort of evolved into such an elite craft, all in all, right? That's my opinion. But it's interesting to read these earlier books, 1926, and to see the way that people just made it work. So I wanted to continue this talk because out of the 4 volumes, and they're very small, they're like 6 pages each, I think with all of the asides that we do, sort of unraveling and talking about different things as we go, we only got through, we're at the end of the second one. So I figured we'd continue this today. Lynn says it's going to be 29 tonight, and we have snow this morning. Oh my gosh. That is surprising. That is cold. I'm sorry. It's very uncomfortable to go out when it's that cold, isn't it? I vacillate so much between being so cold and so warm. I guess I can complain about anything, but it's like it was so cold this morning. I dropped Joss off at school because she's perfectly well, and God, is she on a toot right now? She was watching YouTube videos last night, and there is something to be said for them. If you have kids or grandkids that watch them, I know 99% of them are like deplorable, but some of them have great content. Hey, this is YouTube video, isn't it? So she was watching one and she found out that certain pennies that have a certain spacing of the words are worth a stupid amount of money, like $1,000 each. So we have lots of pennies in various hardware drawer, some jars of pennies, things like that. And she spent hours last night going through them under her microscope, like her scientific microscope, penny by penny, checking them out. She found a couple that were worth like $40 each. So now she feels very encouraged and she's big into the pennies today. She's not here; she's over at a friend's house, pennying. So that's kind of exciting. But I thought that is a really cute and thrifty thing for her to do while she's sitting there like Ebenezer Scrooge with like tons of $20 bills around her that she's been hoarding for like the last few years. And whenever we go out shopping, I'm the one who pays, and she's the one who keeps her wallet like zipped. And here she is, like in a lather, in a froth of bills, right? Counting more pennies and seeing if she can make another 1,000 here and there. She is too funny. Oh my gosh, she is too funny. Courtney, great to see you. Great to see you. Oh, I'm so glad you're on. No, April, I have not found the Blue Nose book, and I know that I need to, because I glanced at it briefly, and it was the most spectacular rug cooking book that I have seen to date. And I am super frustrated, but I have torn apart the studio and I've torn apart the house, which means that it slipped somewhere, and that is like frustrating. So I might just order another one because I'm really frustrated with myself. I want to cover it sooner rather than later, and I have now spent hours looking for it, which is not a good use of time for me when I don't have that time. I think I'm just going to order another one. Thank you for reminding me. It's really important to me too that I cover that book because it is like a landmark publication and it needs to be covered in huge detail. I'll have one more sniff around the living room because that was the last time I read it, but I was sure I put it in the studio bag. I'm super upset with myself. I'll look for it, and if I don't find it, I'll order another one tonight so I can cover it next week. I really need to cover it. Sharon says, I'd like to see the rug hooking I'd like to see rug cooking dragged into the 21st century with the motifs and fibers. Absolutely. And I think weirdly, it's like the pendulum swinging. When you go so far to the left, it's actually at the right again. That's where I would like it to be too. That's exactly where I would like it to be. Because where it could go in the 20th century with all these mixed fibers and this sort of no barriers, like no the sort of final frontier, absolutely no barriers and no speed bumps. That's where it started. It would be nice if it went back there again, if it got back there. Dave says, no more pennies in Canada since 2013. Oh, I see they're upgrading to the nickel or the equivalent, right? Yeah, I remember they were doing that in England before they switched the euro. They were doing that with the pound, like eliminating the smaller denominations or whatever of change. And I thought, yeah, I wonder what this does with the economy. I don't know because I'm certainly not a financier, but I bet it does something providential for the economy itself when you eliminate that many pennies, right? That must have some ramifications in terms of spending, right? Interesting conversation. I'd like to know the answer to that. I'd be interested. Carrie says it's a balmy 76 in Tampa Bay right now. That is almost tropical for this time of year. That sounds delicious. Sharon also said we got rid of the penny in Canada. Karen, good to see you. Good afternoon from cold, windy, and snowy Colorado. I hear the door opening behind me. Look who's here. Look who's here. Teddy's going to give us a little... keep yourself covered up. Okay, wait a minute. My computer just did something weird.
I know,
okay.
Mom, I'm not just going to go naked.
No, don't go naked. So here he is. You want to say hi to the viewers? You haven't been on camera for ages. So I'll just remind... So you're feeling better? You're feeling a little bit better?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So I just want to remind Teddy and the viewers that on Monday we talked about our trip to the Dr. Seuss Museum, and we saw some beautiful and important pieces of art, really inspiring. Remember that big piece? You want to tell the story of that big piece that Mama was falling apart?
Yes.
Go ahead, tell the story. You're gonna pull up a prop. I think they know what the picture looks like.
No.
You want to show it?
Yes.
Okay, hurry up, because everybody's waiting. Everyone's live.
Yeah, everyone's live.
You feeling better, buddy?
Yes, I am.
Oh, my poor man.
There's always a quick way to find stuff on
Okay, so he's showing you the Helen Frankenthaler painting that we saw at the Springfield Museums. Look at everyone saying hi to you, Ted. That's the one called The Cave by Helen Frankenthaler. We saw that in the Art Museum, which is the same ticket as the Dr. Seuss Museum.
Yes.
And you ended up liking that picture, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. When we learned a little bit about modern art, which was fun.
I like the picture because I like the color purple in the middle.
I like the color purple too. You know, Helen and her husband visited caves many times on their honeymoon again many times. And it was a big deal to them. They got a private tour. When you have all the money in the world, you get a private tour. So I don't know if that like harkens to those days of her touring these caves. I forget in what country. Teddy, you want to show us what you came to show us and then shut the door?
Yeah. No, put these on your lap.
Okay.
They're cute.
Okay. So do you want to show them to the viewers?
How about you?
Okay, I'll show you what Teddy has brought in from the Dr. Seuss Museum. We can never buy anything normal. We got one sneetch in the Dr. Seuss Museum, right?
Yeah, I have it in one of my cub things.
But we were satisfied with that sneetch, but not entirely. We needed to order this enormous and vintage sneetch, as in sneetches on the beaches, right?
I know what you're talking about. That sneetch plushie was adorable.
This is an enormous sneetch. I mean, this is like Big Bird scaled sneetch.
Here,
Teddy, what kind of year are we talking about with these lovely vintage collectibles?
80s.
80s,
Hold on,
okay.
Let me bring over the other one.
Yeah, bring the other sneetch, and then we got to get going. And this is Yertle the Turtle. Do you remember this guy? These are enormous vintage. He only likes really vintage characters, so it's fun to find stuff on eBay. These were like $20 for both. These are enormous and really beautifully made Dr. Seuss vintage toys. Go ahead, show the sneetch.
This one's probably one of my favorite Dr. Seuss things I own.
Yeah.
He's so cute.
Stars upon Nars. Carrie, that's it. Stars upon Nars. Isn't that just the best? To me, that is like, it's the ultimate metaphor for life, isn't it? So I way prefer the old sneetch to the new sneetch.
Yeah, I really, really like my new sneetch too. He's so cute.
Look at all the people saying hi to you, honey. Judy says, hey, Teddy, I have to go back and see the rest of your museum trip. Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? We saw some serious art.
Yeah, and someone's here to see us.
Okay. I don't know if Buttons the dog needs to be here. You want to shut the door and I'm going to run the show?
He's all good.
You need Yertle, right?
Say hi to him.
Oh, right in the mouth. Right in the lips.
He loves
all right.
to kiss on the lips for
All right, get them out. Get them out. All right. I love you, baby. I'll see you later.
Love you.
Those are adorable, aren't they? It's so much fun, the things that you can find, right? Oh, the places you go. I forget about Stars Upon Mars. That is so funny. I that I'm gonna say I love the pants with nobody in them, but the sneeches on the beaches. That is the ultimate. I think I'll read that to him tonight. He'll probably love it. Maybe he'll read it to me. So let's come back to where we left off. Sorry about that. I knew he was going to visit us. Love me some Dr. Seuss. So true, isn't it? So true. I'm going to reach out to them again. I haven't heard back from them because I was inquiring about their tapestries and the rug on the floor. That is another tapestry. I had so many things that I wanted to know about, and I want to know what they have that is not currently being displayed. So I'm going to see how far I can get with them because they had some really cool items that belonged to Dr. Seuss. And I really wanted to follow up with some of it because he was obviously a collector of some very cool textile stuff. So that's for all of us. That's a big to be continued. So let's come back to where we left off. And if you remember, this was, I think, the last photo we looked at. We were really on the hunt for some impossibly quaint talk that was coming out of the pages of this Fireside Industries publication from 1926. And we left off on the conversation about the popularity of hooked rugs. And just to catch us up because it's been a full week since then. Today requirements. She was talking, if you remember, at the end of the conversation, she was talking about time, and she left. She kind of left. We left her on that sentiment that in the colonial days, and of course, rug hooking does not date to the colonial days, but whatever. Back in the day, when women were doing nothing but sitting around, they had nothing but time on their side. Time was not so stringent as it is in modern times in 1920s. And she said, they were able to like really spend their time making these things, and we're really not. I think what they're doing with this conversation is they're about to lead us to the product that they manufactured in the 1920s. I think that's where we're headed next. So that brings us to the conversation on hooked rugs from rags, right? So it's looking like this, hooked rugs from rags. Ryan says eBay vintage hunting is an addiction of mine. I know, me too. Me too. I was on eBay the first days of eBay, like the very first days. In those days, I was collecting pincushion half dolls. I collected tons of them, and I ended up selling them, which I now regret. But I had absolutely no money when I was living in Europe and gave up like my touring job. I wasn't working, and I was just selling as much stuff as I could so that we could have extra money and do some fun stuff. Kind of regret it. Gail, great to see you. I am well. I just forgot my computer this morning, but it means we can be here together. You being in Australia, the mornings are impossible, and now we can be together. So, blessing in disguise, right? So, hooked rugs from rags. Let me see what the next slide is to see whether it's something that has a visual or if it's just going to launch a conversation for us. It could go either way, couldn't it? Yeah, not yet. Let's hold on that. That was our thumbnail for today, too. So, the conversation is going like this. I may say, and I just want to remind you, the author is, it's Hooked Rugs, A Bit of History, Stories and Anecdotes. This is from Lesson 2, written by Emily M. Nolan, under the supervision of Gabriel Andre Petit. I may say for the benefit of the craftsman who still clings to the old-time method that rugs may be made from many materials such as denims, cretonnes, ginghams, flannels, even duck, and unbleached muslin, which may be dyed very successfully. Cotton cloth usually gives us a softer, fluffier effect than wool and lasts remarkably well. An unbleached muslin rug I know of has already had 12 years of usage. Colonial dames were wont to use a combination of wool and cotton in one rug. Sometimes silk too was added to the same rug. Usually the silk would be used for a motif or border and the background filled in with cotton or wool. Silk does not wear so well as either cotton or wool. That is very true. That remains true. It must be kept in mind if you wish to hook with rags that the use of short remnants is impractical and entails a large amount of labor. The strips must be cut of even width with scissors, an operation which requires not only labor but an appalling waste of time. I have known of enterprising women who wove rugs, who would hire the services of old women to cut these rags into strips for a few cents a pound. These strips must be used quickly as the material is apt to fray. Well, that certainly depends on the handling, but interesting. Interesting. You just find yourself an old woman, languishing somewhere and ask her, how many pennies per pound, right? When rugs are made of rags, the loops are sometimes clipped on the right side with shears. Some authorities on the subject say that in olden days, the rugs were not clipped until they had begun to look worn, and that then the ingenious housewife clipped the upper parts of the loops in order to remove the worn, soiled parts. After the rug was thus clipped, it looked new again. We have said that before. We have read that before, always in older periodicals. Some of the older books, sort of not reviews, but um, looking at some of these older books written on the subject of rug hooking, we have heard this sentiment before, that rugs would be looped and then clipped according to how dirty the tops of the loops were getting from usage. Now that does make me think, because elder abuse, colonial style, absolutely. Old women, rounding up the old women, where are you? Coming out of the woodwork. Ryan says, love the idea of clipping when it gets worn, a whole new rug. Absolutely. No respect for the elderly. Sometimes it just doesn't come off right. The wording, we are so uber sensitive right now, and that is not something that I enjoy personally. But some of the dated writing is so funny because it's remarkably insensitive, isn't it? I hear my grandmother's voice saying just about everything. Interesting, because I know that over the years that we've been together doing this show, we have looked at a lot of rugs where I go, God, I can't tell if it's clipped or if it's worn, because it looks like a cross section, looks almost like a fossil, right? I'm looking at almost like a cross section of it. It doesn't look like loops, but other parts do look like loops. Now that I think about it, right, I'm thinking, I wonder if some of those rugs that we looked at that I still have and we could revisit, I wonder if it's that they clipped loops, like localized clipping, where it was like especially dirty or something had happened. Thinking about Ted, something had happened, and you needed to clean it up by just clipping loops in a certain area. That is entirely possible, because sometimes those rugs that give me like such pause, and I think, what a mystery I have here. It looks clipped, but then other parts don't. Is it just massively worn? I bet that's exactly what was going on. They were clipping where there was like extreme use or staining. That's the only thing that makes sense, isn't it? Logically, we can only deduce things based on what logically makes sense, right? Because we don't have the answer to whether rug to rug this is actually what happened. Interesting. I shouldn't laugh at elder abuse, but that comment was funny. It was. It was. It was lighthearted, of course. But when I think about it, now when I need a service, I look at Etsy. Because, like, for example, this winter when I needed not a Pokemon, a My Singing Monsters character crochet, there's no way I was going to spend the time figuring out the pattern for it, and it was not available. And I went on Etsy and I typed in like custom crochet characters, and the woman came back with a price tag, and I was like, that's fine, because for the amount of time it would take me, this is a bargain. So, and she ended up doing it for me. And I guess that's the equivalent. You want a service performed, you look for the person who can perform the service, and you do what makes sense, right? Like a hedge, clip that rug. Clip that rug. That'd be a good name. Ooh, that'd be a fun name for like a video, wouldn't it? Clip that rug. I was thinking about clipping some of my latch hook rugs. I've showed you in the past, I have something of a collection of latch hook rugs, ones that I could identify, because in my mind I'm not as big into latch hook as I am into other forms, but I still love it. And I know some of the early patterns from specific companies that I really have great love for. You'll read all about that in the latch chapter of the first book that's coming out on June 1st. That should be in the body of this video. Um, I have some of the latch rugs that I'm the most fond of, designs from like the 30s, 40s, and they are quite dirty. So I was going to do a live video where I use my sort of bent scissors, right, to clip that rug, and to see how, without taking away from the look of the rug and making it look brand new, which I don't want. I want to think about, and it's going to take practice, isn't it? Practice cutting a rug that still leaves it with some variety and the look of age without looking so dang dirty, right? So there's got to be a happy medium in there somewhere. I know what the rug that I did for that first book, it's of a sheep. And in the center, the sheep is very three-dimensional with very long yarn. It's all proper yarn. None of it's like latch hook type stuff. Pre-cut. I pre-cut it as I made the rug, and I clipped down everything but the sheep's body. And it's a good effect. It's a bit of a latch hook Waldoboro effect, right? If there could be such a thing. Widows would probably have, Lynn says, widows would probably have appreciated earning a few pennies per pound, but I also can't imagine their aged hands doing all that cutting. Oh, that's true. That's true. That must have been painful. Oh, God, now that I'm thinking about it, they probably did need the money, and their hands probably hurt like anything. Oh, that is sad. Ryan says, I collect vintage latch hook patterns 60s and 70s. I can see that. I can see you wanting those. Some of them are really beautiful. I collect earlier, so we never bid on the same stuff on eBay. That's good to know, right? We don't want to be frenemies on eBay, that's for sure. So let me see, am I here yet? Not quite yet. Now here we go. The thrust of this, they keep alluding to what kinds of materials you want to be hooking with, don't they? And they seem to be steering us away from wool. And I think the reason that they are is because now in the end of volume 2, they are about to start promoting really aggressively the product that Fireside Industries was producing at that time, and it was called Fluff Fabric, FLUF dash fabric. That, and I could not find any references to it online. If you can, please let me know. I searched eBay, I searched Google, I searched a lot of places, but I was looking for this. Of course, it's a hard one, right? Because it's a lot of things are called fluff, and the computer wants to think it's a typo, but it's FLUF hyphen fabric. So they produce this thing called fluff fabric, and they say specifically rugs hooked from fluff fabric, like that supplied by Fireside, must, in italicized, never be clipped. So this makes me wonder because it sounds like I don't know what it is, and because I couldn't find a picture reference, I was thinking rugs and haircuts. It is a lot like that, isn't it? I was thinking what they are producing, this fluff, because they're really adamant. They say a few times, do not cut it, right? So you can make your loops, but do not clip it. I'm thinking it's more akin to fleece than anything else. I'm thinking it's not a woven. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I'm just picturing they're very worried that you're going to cut it. And I'm thinking if you cut it, um, I think it'd be much more inclined if it's puffy and fluffy and a little bit slippery to fall out of the backing. And maybe that's what they don't want to do because it would give the whole product a bad name. I'm not sure. Without seeing what the product looked like, it's impossible to know the nature of the material or the content of the material. But it was obviously a copyrighted or patented material at the time, fluff fabric. Karen says, I have lots of fresh new snow for cleaning my grandmother's rugs. Concerned about doing it, though, since her backing is burlap. Well, it is the way that people still recommend doing it, and I still, in modern references to cleaning rugs, all the contemporary books are still saying to go ahead and do that. Um, if the rug is hooked, and I'm sure it is hooked perfectly, and it's only hitting the surface of the loops, I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean, and I have to admit, I have not done it. I've done it, but not with really old rugs that I love a lot because I am scared too. So if anybody wants to chime in on that, that is worth chiming in on. The general consensus from the powers that be seems to be it's absolutely still considered the best way to do it. Um, but I feel the same way that you cannot logically be assured that moisture is not going to reach the backing fabric, particularly if it's hooked in a narrow cut, which would be very low and therefore very close to the backing fabric. You can't be assured that moisture isn't going to reach the backing fabric. And for that reason, I've been scared too for the same reason. And I've done it with newer rugs. To not a great avail, I have to say. It hasn't been one of these like before and after commercials like with teeth or something. It hasn't been like that at all. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, went through the exercise, but I'm haven't done it to my older rugs. Partly because many of my older rugs, like really old rugs, they're only part wool if there's any wool at all. There's a lot of silks and cotton, so it's just a big no thanks for me. But yeah, I'd be curious to see what other people have to say about that because I have yet to read a contemporary rug hooking book that addresses this subject and says don't do it. They all so far say do it. So I don't know if that's just a quaint throwback or there just isn't a better way known. I read a lot of books that say do not beat an older rug because it really can't take it, right? It really can't take it. It is likely to like, split. Um, Ryan says on latch hook cleaning, any advice washing a 60-year-old latch rug? There's discoloration in the white wool overall. If it's a 60-year-old rug, it's going to be probably synthetic, right? Because synthetics came around the 1940s. It's probably going to be acrylic. And this is a hard one. Even with a costume background, I hate to chime in on this without actually knowing. What I'll say, Ryan, is that I have a rug that has a mostly white background that's latch, and it's very dirty. So my thought is I'm going to clip it first, and if the clipping doesn't work, my next thought is to take out some like some parts of it, like some of the background, and re-latch with some cleaner, more pure looking, less dirty, probably still acrylics, same material, but to kind of mix it in, almost like marble cake it in the background so that it looks fresher or at least intentional. But again, I'm looking to see if anyone has addressed this, cleaning the white on. Well, this would be a synthetic, so like latch hook rugs. The good thing about latch is it's so easy to pull it out, just like one knot at a time. I know nobody wants to think about doing that. It would be cool though to go on eBay and to get some vintage latch pre-cuts. Make sure it's the right height though, right? Because there's so many different heights. That would be cool, like a cool project. I know you're busy with your original work, and your original work is important and super beautiful. So, at time wise, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't overall wash a latch rug because I wouldn't at all expect it to be expecting to be washed, and I wouldn't think the material that was used to kit it would be good for washing in any way. Nothing wet. I wonder if you can drop rugs off at the dry cleaner. I wonder if that would make any difference. Has anybody ever tried that, dropping like a textile off at the dry cleaner? Um, I've never tried that. I mean, I've heard of dropping off like bedding and quilts and things. I guess you probably could. I wonder if that could be a solution. It's still risky though. I'll be curious to follow the thread too. Carrie says she can put a towel down first, put the rug on a towel, sweep snow on and off. Put a towel down first. Put a towel down first. Put rug on towel. Sweep snow on and off. So actually sweep the surface of the loops. Would you do that, Carrie? Sweep the surface of the loops? And Judy says, how about placing the rug face down in the snow, then drying it? Ooh, interesting. Then drying it face down on a rack so that the water doesn't. Yeah, so don't let gravity do its thing. That's a great idea. I like that idea. Carrie, I'm still looking at your idea too. Um, I like that idea, Judy. That makes a lot of sense. Don't give gravity a chance to drag in. I'm just thinking, would it make its way up anyway because fabric is so thirsty? I don't know. I like that better. If you are going to make it wet, I would do the upside down thing. I like that. I'm still not sure it wouldn't reach it just because it would absorb, like towels and cotton and even wool absorb. Um, Interesting, though. Very interesting. Yeah, Karen says great ideas, Carrie and Judy. Yep, really good ideas. Bunny says, could fluff fabric really be a chenille fabric? It really could. It really could be a chenille fabric. Carrie, I'm sorry, Bonnie, that makes a lot of sense. That makes way more sense because chenille was so popular at that time, wasn't it? In the 20s, 30s, chenille was super popular. In bedding, they had kind of evolved from the candle wicked bedspread to the chenille bedspread. That makes a lot more sense. I think you're definitely onto something. If I had to bet on it, I would say your idea is way better than mine. I would go with yours. That makes way more sense because of course the nature of chenille too is if you clip it, it falls apart in your hand. It just atomizes like dandelion fluff. That makes a lot more sense. Dave says use dry cleaners to remove wax from batik fabric. Oh, you did to remove wax from batik fabric. Interesting. That sounds like there's a story there. Judy says, I'm not sure where K's. I'm not sure where K's. Carrie says, had to feed the dogs. Only way I've seen a rug cleaned with snow is the way I mentioned. Okay, interesting. With a towel. and then sweeping it. These are all great. I mean, these are all things that have been promoted over the years. None of these ideas are wrong. None of them are wrong. And it also, I think, depends on the rug and the colors in the rug. I can tell that some of my like 1920s, 1930s rugs were wet because there's a lot of bleeding with red and purples and pinks. A lot of bleeding to the point where I now have to, if I want to keep them, if I want to keep them and display them, unhook or remove carefully some of the loops and put in more colors, right? To because the colors that have bled are very obvious. So yeah, Judy says, "Oops, not sure where Karen lives. Our snow tends to be very wet." But if you have very cold temps and powdery snow, I don't think you'd have a lot of wicking. Right, wicking is like the sucking up of it, like the leaching of it, right? Interesting. I didn't know that. Of course, wicking. I always think of something being wick like a plant, right? Interesting. This is a great conversation. You see where these old things take us to some good old brainstorming, snowballing, right? That might be the better word in this conversation. And Karen says she's in Colorado. Oh my God! You know what the next section is? How funny is that? The cleaning of rugs. Here we go. It may not be. Here, I'm going to lean back in my chair. Don't you love these sweatshirts? I always say, if anybody makes these sweatshirts, please let me know. I want to buy a whole bunch from you. I love these crazy sweatshirts. It might not be amiss here to say a word about cleaning hooked rugs. Those made from fireside fluff fabric may be cleaned in either of two ways. They may be dry cleaned, or they may be cleaned just as our great grandmothers cleaned theirs. Okay, I just got a stomach cramp. Wait for it. Take a scrubbing brush, dip it lightly into soft warm water in which a suds has been made with a pure mild soap. That's a typo, I think. Scrub the rug vigorously with a circular motion. I'm not promoting this at all, but do not use too much water. The latter must not penetrate the rug. Okay, so the water, she's saying the water must not penetrate the rug. Immediately after scrubbing, take a coarse towel wrung out of clean, warm water and wipe up the dirt which the scrub brush has loosened. This process may be repeated, care being taken not to get the rug damp to its foundation. After thus cleaning it, take it into the yard, smooth it out on a nice grassy spot, and let the sun dry it. Do not use a vacuum cleaner on it, and do not shake it. In italics, do not shake it. A little ammonia in the water may be used on occasion to help in the cleaning process. So I'm not saying this is 1926, right? This is a 1926 periodical. Oh, Lisa, good to see you. Dave says, would be worth finding a specialist textile restoration. Absolutely. Maybe through a museum. Could be a future show. Maybe I can talk to somebody at Yale, because my sister works at Yale. I think I was in touch with somebody there because they have a bunch of hooked rugs. So I've been in touch with her about going to visit. Maybe I could ask her. I don't know if she would be the same person. There's so many people in macadamia. I did that on purpose because they're all nuts, right? But that I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to do that. Carrie, you need a little agitation to clean things. Yeah, I guess you do need a little agitation. I picture a scrub brush as being one of those crazy bristle brushes, but I would be scared to hold a scrub brush. But then again, I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly, because they are definitely describing something that is an athletic exercise in the cleaning of the rug. And I know other people have done it, and it's been absolutely fine. And they've written about it, and it's been absolutely fine. Yeah, you always need agitation, right? The washing machine has the agitator in the middle of it, right? Yeah, this is a subject you can tell I'm not comfortable with completely. So I'm always scared to comment on it, and I'm much more inclined to take your advice as better, because this scares me a little bit. This whole conversation of, especially of older rugs, and it's all apples and oranges, isn't it? Because from rug to rug, and even from snow to snow, it's going to be different. So, like she's saying, rub it with soap and then hang it out to dry in the sun. And then other accounts are like, well, ideally snow, right? Not soap, not ammonia. and then you wouldn't necessarily have snow in the dead of winter where it would be drying outside, be freezing outside. It's all interesting. I watched your interview with your sister, but I didn't watch it in its entirety. Now I can't find it. Oh, Sharon, it should be there. I wonder, I don't know what the tag words are for it, but it should definitely be there. I hope it's not gone. I loved that interview. It was long. It was long. It was right during COVID because even she and I didn't get together for that. We were both in our separate respective spots. Carrie says just a soft brush that you would find in the soap section for like body wash. That makes sense to me, like a scrub brush for your back kind of a thing. That makes sense to me. That makes sense. Like I think of the kind of brushes I use on the kids here. They're super soft because they're still my babies. Let's go to lesson number 3 and see what we can learn. I didn't pull a lot from these last 2 books because they're very technical. And although it's interesting to talk about the ways things were done, they definitely aren't the way we would do things now in most cases because they're impractical and excessively time consuming and very imprecise. So this lesson is called Rudiments and Mechanics. And it starts with hooked rugs are sometimes called pulled rugs or drawn rugs. In the Scottish name pulled rug, they're using phrases. Some of the stuff is antiquated and not really true anymore. A lot of the rug types that they're talking about in the introduction of this lesson um, are different. We call them by different names now, and we put them differently on a timeline at this point. But some things remain the same, like securing a design is the next section. And the first point is tracing the design, right? So she says, if you have some little design that you would like to use for your hooked rugs, make a small sketch and color it, and study it in all of its details. If satisfactory, enlarge it to the proposed size for the rug and trace or draw it using a heavy black pencil. If you find it difficult to enlarge designs freehand, you may use an instrument called a pantograph. A pantograph. I have not heard of a pantograph. Shame on me, right? A pantograph. This may be bought at almost any well-equipped art supply house or through Fireside. A pantograph. Who knows about that? The small colored sketch will serve you in your selection of the colored yarn or rags. Point 2 is tracing the design around forms previously cut. I have seen hooked rug makers who were not blessed with the talent of designing cut designs out of large figured wallpaper. We have heard this before. Flowers, birds all came into use, and after they had been carefully cut, they were pinned into position on the burlap. They actually mean wallpaper, like leftover scraps from wallpaper. If it's like figured wallpaper with like people, birds, animals, motifs, right? Actually cutting them out carefully with scissors, which is its own art, and using them as stencils, right? Interesting. And you're able to pin them down as well, which is even more handy. Pinned into position on the burlap, and their contours followed with a black pencil or small pointed brush dipped in India ink. 1926. When the outline of the design was completed, the shapes forming it were lifted off the burlap and the details drawn freehand. So in other words, if you're going to trace a peacock and put it as your motif inside your center medallion, um, you're going to get the outline of it, right? You could even maybe poke out the eyes to show the placement of the eyes. If you're really good, you might use the scissors to cut out the shape of the wing. But I think for most people, they're just tracing the silhouette of it and then eyeballing the rest of it and hopefully getting the placement of the eyes and everything else right. This is great information for us because I'm thinking, if you find a rug that some aspects of it are really masterfully done and others are bad, like, oh, that's a good looking lion, but why are the eyes like so close together? That kind of thing. Wonder if it's because this technique has been employed. Interesting to think about. Judy says the idea behind the snow is its granularity gives the fiber a scrub. Oh, I see. It is a bit gritty in nature, isn't it? I'm only experienced with carpets, not hooked rugs, but my grandmother would throw her rugs out on a clean patch of snow and walk on the back. See, that is great information because that was done, right? And her rugs didn't unravel immediately, right? They didn't disappear, melt into the snow. it was fine, right? It worked and the rugs were cleaned. So this is great information. That's great firsthand information. And also, what a great memory of your grandmother. That is really, I have to remember that. I have to clock that in my head because someday that's going to come in handy for a writing project or something. That is so quaint and wise, right? So, yeah, when the outline is lifted off, then you have to freehand all the details. That would be the pig of the project, wouldn't it? Figuring that part out. These shapes were used again and again to furnish a color scheme for the rugs. Yeah, I guess they could be used over and over or lent to a neighbor or something. Then she talks about stamped designs, and I looked this up too, to no avail. I found nothing fireside. Both the word fireside and fluff, there's so many results for it that it was like a needle in a haystack. So, on the subject of stamped designs, which means a pre printed commercial design on burlap, neither of these fairly tedious methods is necessary with rugs secured through fireside. The design is already stamped on the burlap, and a color scheme accompanies it. Thus, you can start right in without any irksome preliminaries. So, in other words, they're trying to sell you the fireside rugs. I have yet to see a fireside brand hooked rug, either as a burlap pattern or a finished rug. I would love to, by the way. Hint, hint. If you see any, I don't want to have it. I just want an image of it so that we can use it on the show. Karen says pantograph is an etching machine. Oh, interesting. An etching machine. So it would register your line drawing somehow, and then it would etch a copy of it, kind of a thing, but in a different size. And that sounds remarkable. I guess it has like a needle or something that would do that. I can't even picture that, right? That's how much of a ding dong I am with technology. Even the pantograph is a bit too much for me. But interesting. I'll have to pull that up on eBay. I'd like to get a visual picture of that. They talk a little bit about placing the design, which is fairly intuitive, but for somebody with no experience, not at all. So a little bit on that, and then she talks about the hemming it by saying turn the hem back, baste it down with heavy thread, and then sew cotton tape over it. This tape must not show on the right side. In other words, when you're tacking it down, you do not want your stitches to go right through the loop so that you can see them on the front. This is all common sense, but again, important. And when we do look at rugs from this era, we know that people are being advised to finish them this way by folding it over and then adding the tape, right, and dragging it under. So there's no edge protection for rugs of this era, but also interesting, isn't it? Oh, this is where they're showing us this photo. Let me come up to, because you see my face this whole episode. Let's look at this photo. So this is an example, sort of a period setting, very Wallace Nutting-esque picture, isn't it? With a beautiful, very symmetrical, kind of modern-looking hooked rug. I was expecting something flowery and scrolly. That's a bit more interesting, isn't it? Let me stretch this photo for us. Oops, wait a minute. I grabbed the wrong photo with this stupid program. Actually, the program's usually very helpful. I'm at. See if I can stretch it for us a little bit. See, I bet the photo quality is not such that we're going to be able to, but let's see if we can see the design. Gosh, it looks like two colored leaves, doesn't it? It looks almost like a bit of an oriental design, a little bit. Interesting. So it's about to walk us into a talk on tools. And the first book gave us a lot on tools. Oh, here's somebody making, showing how the hook is pushed through the burlap, allowing one to see the design as it develops. So they have shown us the punch, which is what they were really promoting. In the last episode that we read last Wednesday, we saw that photo. Now they're showing us the hook. So they're making the distinction, well, when you hook, you are pulling up loops and you see the design as it evolves. And you're also seeing how this is on a floor frame, right? And they're using string through the sides to get it taut side to side, east to west, right? Not just north to south. So I think all of these photos are really interesting because there's so few photos in these periodicals that the ones that they choose are really important to them, right? They really serve a purpose. So they're showing us how when you're punching, you punch on the wrong side, right? You're seeing the back of it. And the right side is what you get underneath. I would like to have that frame too, Sharon. That was very good. I have a floor frame. I'm going to have to take it out again and look at it some more. So then it's showing you what the right side looks like. This is exactly why my brand is called Ribbon Candy Hooking, right? Because loops, when you rug hook, look just like ribbon candy, don't they? So cute. Let's go to the next one, see what they're showing us. Lots of illustrations, lots of guidance. Now, every conversation from this era about frames is very lacking, right? So, Andrea says, hubby just described a pantograph. I had one as a kid. It was a pivoted piece of plastic, pencil on one end and a point on the other. Oh, you could trace with the point and the pencil drew. Oh my God. I just got a wacky flashback reading that. I think I can picture that. I'm definitely going to have to pull that up. If anybody pulls that up and you want to post it in our Facebook group, which is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, I would love to see that and just say this is a reference to the coffee time from, Wednesday night. I completely got a crazy flashback reading that, Andrea. That makes sense to me. I see what you mean. I'm going to have to follow up on that. That's really, really jogged a memory. All conversations on frames in this era are a little bit laissez-faire because I just feel like they're describing something that is for modern people, and they couldn't foresee this, impossible to construct. Like, I don't have the tools in my garage or my back pocket to make anything like. I know this is simple, and for a lot of people, it's like, really, you couldn't do this? No, I actually couldn't do this. I would need a lot of brain power, probably a couple of glasses of wine, and a huge amount of help from Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's like, let us help you build something. Or alternately, let us help you screw something up really badly. I never try stuff like this because I have no faith in myself, but maybe you do, and maybe we all should. Two sticks of, two of the sticks, so it's describing the frame, it needs four sticks. This is taken right from the book. Two of the sticks have small square holes facing each other. The long one's slats that will be inserted through the holes. So you can see where they're going with this, but you would be expected to make this at home, right? This isn't for everybody, that's for sure. And then they're showing you the next thing that needs to happen, which is the slats go through. You're putting in screws, I guess, to tighten up the wood, right? So it's really locked in, biting on the slats that are running through. And then you are lacing it on the sides. I wonder if they're putting little grooves into the sides. For this one, the top two, right? And that makes sense. That makes sense too. This would work really well if you were one of those people who finished your edges first, right? Because this looks like finished first. Already sewn the edges down. Let us help you screw something up. I love it. I shouldn't say that. I'm going to get in trouble, right? Yeah. But this is an interesting picture because all the information is here, and I know some of you, if not all of you, are perfectly capable of constructing this. I know that I can't at this moment in my evolution, but I know you're better than me. I know you are. I just think it's curious and interesting to look at these photos because I think all of it is right here for us, and it's almost like I need a Rosetta Stone, even though I can see all the information is there. Um, Oh, this is interesting. This is just kind of an aside. Lining, it's getting dark, right? The picture's changing. Lining of rug optional. Some hooked rugs are occasionally lined with burlap, the idea being that the life of the rug will be prolonged. There may be something to that, but my experience, this is the author, but my experience has been that lined rugs are stiff in appearance and in a few weeks will harbor enough dust to make them unsanitary. I'm going to have to agree with that because I know that the antique rugs that I have that are from the late 19th century, early 20th century, those backings, the first thing I did when I bought them was carefully remove the backings because they are smelly and moisture carrying. So I absolutely agree with that. Antique backings, if you have them, I would remove them. From a textile point of view, I would remove them because they're doing nothing but holding gases, air, dust, um, possibly moth eggs, right? Just better not, because they're not necessary anyway. Ryan says 1920s punch. I need to go back and watch the last episode. Absolutely, absolutely, you do. They're calling it the needle. They're not saying punch yet. They're calling it the needle, the rug needle. All right, so let me see. I want to get. We're late as usual. Writing my mouth off as always. Okay, so this is the part, the rudiments and mechanics. They're talking about different ways of transferring designs, and they show you cutting the stencil, using the stencil brush, right? So directions for stenciling. This is a big thing because they talked about cutting out wallpaper motifs and stuff just with scissors and putting them down and tracing around them. That's all well and good. But then they get into big detail with stenciling. This is very Edward Sands Frost style, right? Because for a lot of people, they would not have the confidence to freehand. And in the 1920s, right? This is 1926. We haven't hit the Depression yet. So it might be that a lot of people, particularly in rural areas, are not seeing or finding the commercial patterns. They need this content about stencils. So the book talks about stenciling on paper, on a good or bad quality of the stencil paper, on the good or bad quality of the stencil paper and its use will depend the life of any stencil. Okay, so that was kind of an inverted sentence structure. Plain paper won't do. The paper must be especially prepared. And so in other words, she's saying don't use thin paper, right? I would say if you're using it once, you can use thin paper, but apparently in grandmother's time, stencil paper was made at home. A heavy wrapping paper crudely given a coat of linseed oil or turpentine was used. Today, a heavy stencil paper that cuts easily and sharply outlasts manifoldly the poorer paper of other days that may be procured. So she's really advising, but she's also advising that you are going to repeat using your stencils. Linseed oil, it's a lot, but interesting to do. I'm looking forward to a time when I can spend time doing videos using these old methods because that would be fun. I could dress up in a costume and everything. Wouldn't that be fun? I would really enjoy that. I really would. Cutting the stencil. So then she talks about, oh, this is interesting. The main requirement for obtaining a good impression is to have sharp, clean edges. Draw or trace your pattern on the paper and then with a sharp pointed knife, cut through it cleanly and at one stroke of the knife, working on a piece of glass. So cutting on glass. That's a good tip. Glass or zinc will not hurt the edge of your knife. Oh, it makes my teeth hurt though. In the least and will enable it to slide, making curved lines easy to follow and producing clean and well-cut edges. If you cut on wood or cardboard, the knife is liable to catch in the grain and ruin the stencil. This is so true. This is the best nugget of these 4 books so far. The edge of the knife should be kept in good condition by sharpening it frequently on an oil stone. So, if you have an oil stone in your back pocket, there you go. But that's a great tip, isn't it? That actually is a great tip. So all of this is interesting about transferring, and in summary, these are some points in summary. I only use some of them because some of them were so sort of dangerous and reckless now that I didn't even want to repeat them. But in summary, some of the things that are takeaways from this series are number 1, tool number 2 is the tool to use in practicality every case. Tool number 2 was the rug needle that we now call the punch. And that was tool number 2. Tool number 1 was the traditional rug hook. 2 was the punch. 3 was the shuttle, if you remember from the last episode. And they were really promoting tool number 2. That's the thing that they sell, Fireside, or that they did sell. Tip number 2, hold the loops on the underside of the rug. Now this is if you're punching. With the left hand so as to keep them uniform in length and also to prevent their being pulled back when the needle is drawn in order to make the next loop. Now, I have to say, I do a lot of punching, not as much as some of you. Ryan, definitely not as much as you. Would you say that you would hold the loops as you're putting the next punch in? I wouldn't fully expect to slice my hand open if I was holding the loop before it. I don't know. Unless you're going very slow. Judy says, we're fortunate to have ye olde X-Acto blades these days. That is true. I still think cutting on glass is a great idea because it is slippery. And I often cut on cardboard and it gets stuck in the cardboard and then I end up making straight, angular marks that I didn't mean to make when I cut stencils. That's interesting, isn't it? It would really slide on glass. Tip number 3, in general, it's easier to work from right to left, but it is not necessary to do this in order to get a good effect on the right side. You may work the needle any way that is most convenient. So I would say I never work in any thoughtful manner, right? I go for what I go for. It's always instinctive for me. I don't know. Do any of the punchers out there go right to left routinely? Or do you do like religiously right to left work? Because I certainly don't, but maybe some people still do. Tip number 4, keep your stitches at an even distance. On the fireside burlap, skip every 4 threads in the burlap. In other words, there should be 4 threads between the loops. That's real specific. That's a lot of counting. I feel like I would be doing counted cross stitch if I was working with that. Next tip, loops 1/2 inch in depth give a soft and pretty nap. That's really tall, right? So this would be with punching, and I think they're still thinking about the fluff that they make. I really do. The underside, no, let's skip that one. That's a bad one. Most workers find it easier to get good results if they outline the different forms first. I think that is true. This isn't a game of true or false, but I think that one is true. For me, it's true. In making stems and other narrow lines, never use just one line of hooking. It will be lost in the background if you do. Use 2 or 3 rows of hooking. Um, that's subjective, but I would say that would give you a very graphic look, and that was the look of the Art Deco period. So I'm not surprised to read that there. I've never held the loop, Sharon says, nor have I. I'd be very worried about. I'd be very worried about holding the loops. It is time to go, and I'm pretty sure that in lesson four was an all color. It was called Color Appreciation. I'm going to save lesson four. It's real specific. I'm going to save that for when we do an episode that's all on color. I didn't get to do the dyeing stuff in January, as you know. I'm so sorry. It's not ball dropping. It's insanity. Kids being sick and me being overly busy. It's insanity. So I will get back to that as soon as I can. I promise. It has become. I am so thankful that so many people in our group are hooking rugs for the Design Like book, being published by Rug Hooking Magazine, Emery Press, right? And I'm working on that now. I'm so grateful for that. But it means that I'm able to delegate, which is always something I've had trouble with, and I'm I'm really congratulating myself on being able to do that because I haven't done that in the past with anything in my life. I've always been of the sort of maxim, if you want it done right, do it yourself. But in this case, I trust everybody in our group, even the very beginners, so much. And I believe that almost everyone in our group is actually a better technical hooker than I am. So, with that in mind, it has been very easy and exciting for me to be making designs for all of the people who expressed that they wanted to hook something for this book, right? Because essentially the photo in the chapter will be yours. And when I put together gallery rounds for the pieces in the Design Like book, yours will be there too, right? And then I will send it back to you after for you to keep. And I'm really hoping that Sauter Village will be interested in the collection of rugs that come out of this book. Because why wouldn't they, right? It's kind of a no-brainer, I think, from their point of view. So that's one of the things that's kept me so busy is I've been trying to do a lot of designing and a lot of color planning and kitting lately so that I can get these all out to people so everybody has plenty of time, whether you're a slow hooker or a fast hooker, that you have plenty of time to work it. And some people are doing more than one. So that's where the busyness has been kicked up lately. But we will come back to dyeing and foraging and all of that fun stuff together. You know we will. And why don't we look at lesson 4, color appreciation, when we do that? That makes sense. So I will look forward to that. Tomorrow I'm going to have one of my days, retreat days. I'm going to Massachusetts to the Creation Station, and I'm going to have a whole day working on the book. So I'm shipping a bunch of things tonight. I'm going to be there tomorrow, so I will not readily be around. I will check my stuff. You know Jane is on, you know Kirsten's on, you know a lot of the buddies are on who check stuff continually. Jay will be on. A lot of people who manage our Facebook page, Shopify page will be on, but I'm going to be working on the chapters of that book because I've been going like gangbusters and I need to be at this point. So that's what's happening tomorrow. And I will be back with you Friday for gallery night. So many of you have sent your images for gallery night. Thank you so much. I'm going to start putting that together after the show now. And if you want to send something for gallery night because you didn't know it was coming up or you thought of something to send, go ahead and send it now and we will add that to gallery night. So that will be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. We will be looking at your rugs, your projects, celebrating you and your amazing work together. So we'll be doing that this Friday, the day after tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a wonderful day tomorrow. You know where you can find me or not. I'll be getting some great work done. And I will see you all on Friday. Take care, everybody.